Justice and your producer and host for today's show, Weekdays Live. We're going to talk about our system again because we need to keep updated on that. And then we're going to be showing you our hero, one of our heroes, and our future. We do have a future. We just have to keep pushing it to get it to come to pass. And before we talk about these things, I really wanted to make some quick announcements so that we don't forget. And tonight I'm going to be on the radio up in Mendocino County, so I'll have that link on today's comments. You can listen to it on the internet, so you don't have to be in, radio, to hear it over the radio. It's pretty interesting. We just do almost everything on the internet these days. I'll be on Mendo Manners with Paul Lambert and the county supervisor, and Occupy people will be there on the radio discussing public banking, eminent domain, ethical investing. They're really pushing to get the pension funds and the judges and all of these CalPERS, get them out of mortgage-backed securities. So we're going to be talking about that tonight. You might want to, share that with us. Then Friday, Petaluma Occupy has again moved the money. They're standing in front of B of A, which is on North McDowell in Petaluma Plaza Shopping Center, 181 North McDowell. So if you can join them, they pass out flyers. They've really been evidently pretty effective in getting people to change their accounts to move the money. And this is another little issue, an effort that really is, if everybody just keeps working at it, makes a big difference. Then May, obviously, is really this next week in May. Occupy Fights Foreclosures is having an action in Los Angeles. They're still getting that put together, so as we know more about it, I'll bring more of that to the show. That's on the 23rd next week. And then on the 25th, which I think is next Saturday, yes, Monsanto. Against Monsanto, March Against Monsanto. It's all over the world. So get to the website, find out where the closest march is for you in your city and area. I swear there will be one. We all need to start taking our efforts against this kind of a corporation. It is truly mind-boggling to me that they can patent our food and then they can control the food supply. Okay, there's pretty much nothing more basic than food and housing. So let's fight back. I'm going to have to find where the march is in my area and get out and join that effort because, again, I'm fighting for people's homes just like you are. But we really have to start getting a grip on this bottleneck, this throat hold that these corporations and the government cartel have on the people of this planet. So let's quickly jump into some of the information for today. And we're going to have a guest speaker. Jed has agreed to share with us. Whenever he calls in, we're just going to break into the show and share with him because he's got some really exciting news. He's just really been such a good lead dog in Mendocino County. He and Agnes at Occupy in particular, and Ellen, there's several people that have been pushing in Mendocino County, and their voices are being heard. They're talking to the DA, going to the recorder's office, going to the Board of Supervisors, getting on the radio. They're pushing, and they're going to be a real good example for the rest of us. By the time as they move forward, and Jed shares with us the things that he's been finding and the things he's been producing, and I get a chance to get them up on the website, then we'll really be able to start cloning their effort in our counties. I view that as my job here too. So, of course I'm sure you've heard about the vicious bank shakedown that could seriously ruin your life. And this is Chase and other big banks are accused of running a frightening scam collecting on credit card debt. And we talked about this just a couple days ago about the California Attorney General, Kamala Harris, filing a lawsuit against the bank for this. And what I really wanted to point out about this, because as you know, The fraud in the foreclosures, the foreclosure crisis, the toxic loans, all of that is just a symptom. It's just one of the massive scams these banks have been running on the entire planet. I loved what this article said, and I've been saying this now because I've been reading it. So we need to start sharing with others as we talk about the foreclosure crisis that the fact of the matter is these articles are now actually talking about the foreclosure crisis in terms of fraud and unlawfulness. And so here's the skinny. So I'm going to read just a little bit of it and then we're going to move on. After widespread outrage over the big banks' last crime wave against the American consumer, now we're still sort of in that crime wave and we're fighting to correct that crime wave, but here's what they call it. The robo-signing scam in which homeowners were hustled out of their homes by banks that, hear it, sent fraudulent paperwork through the courts. They are at it again. So now they're starting to, it's okay for these reporters. They're not self-editing right now. They're saying, you know something, it's out there enough. There's enough mainstream media actually saying the F word, the fraud word, that we can now write that in our articles. And we need to make sure that everybody that we talk to, family, friends, neighbors, the elected officials in your county, understand that this is now beginning to be the consensus. It was fraudulent paperwork. And if they've done fraudulent paperwork in our records and in the courts, then why aren't we charging them criminally? It just totally makes sense. And of course, this is just one of many scams. Think of LIBOR, how they fix the interest rates upon which all of the loans are based virtually around the country. It is truly an outrage. I wanted to jump right next to our hero because she's actually giving out legislation. She's produced her first bill. And I know it's not about foreclosure fraud, although she's putting these banks to task and she's asking and demanding why the OCC isn't doing something. They're going, what? We should do something? And so now she's working on Eric Holder, the people that should be held accountable. So it's coming. And this is what we have, we can look forward to.
Federal Reserve can float trillions of dollars to large financial institutions at low interest rates to grow the economy. Surely they can float the Department of Education the money to fund our students, keep us competitive, and help grow our middle class.
That was Massachusetts Senior Senator Elizabeth Warren introducing her first piece of legislation in the Senate today. The bill is designed to give students relief from high interest rates on federal loans, which are scheduled to double on July 1st from 3.4% to 6.8%. Senator Warren's bill would allow students to borrow at the same rate that big banks pay to the Federal Reserve, which is currently about 0.75%.
In other words, the federal government is going to charge interest rates 9 times higher than the rates they charge the biggest banks, the same banks that destroyed millions of jobs and nearly broke the economy. That isn't right.
Senator Warren, thank you very much for being here on your debut as a legislator on the Senate floor. How did that feel to go out there and do that?
It felt good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did.
And you're ahead of schedule of the other first-year senators. They usually wait a while in doing this, but this thing just makes so much sense.
That's it, and we can't afford to wait. You know, if Congress does nothing, July 1st, the kids are going to face a doubling of the interest rate on their new student loans. We just can't do that.
And what's the process for this? What committees does it have to get through? And
So HELP would be the right committee. That's what I fought to get on. So I'm on banking and HELP, health, education, labor, and pensions. Although we could take it straight to the floor.
Right.
You know,
it's a very simple.
Pressure.
This is a simple bill. I happen to have my copy right here. I want to get an autographed copy before you go. But it's very simple. It's just changing some numbers. It is easy to legislate. You know, it has the one flaw that it has. I think as something for the United States Senate today, it makes too much sense.
Now.
Senator, this makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Why would they do that?
Yeah. But you know, that is the point now. We really have a chance to do some things that make sense. And this, for me, is really about grassroots legislation, getting lots of people involved, getting students involved, their families involved, anybody who looks at this and says, wait a minute, let me get this straight. We, the taxpayers, make this investment in big financial institutions. Can't we make just the same investment in our students who are trying to get an education? Because look, we do this for the banks because we believe that this is going to help the economy, right? Help us on a shaky recovery. Same thing is true for our students. The Fed came out with a study in March. They said that student loan debt, which has a real impact on the family's bottom line, is threatening our recovery. And so let's do the same thing for the students. Let's help them get their education, lend them the money, make them pay it back, but just help them out on the interest rate. That gives us a first start in helping our students get an education. It's not the whole fix, it's not the whole deal, but it's a good first start on the direction.
So for me to oppose your bill, I have to stand up there and say, oh yeah, sure, less than 1% is a perfectly reasonable interest rate for giant banking institutions, but you don't want a student to get an interest rate like that.
That's right.
That would be my
That's going to have to be your pitch.
Right.
That's exactly right. And you might point out that student loans right now, for every dollar that the U.S. taxpayer is putting into student loans, right now the government's getting 36 cents back in profits. So the students are a profit center right now for the government. The kids who are out there struggling to get an education, but not those big financial institutions. Come on.
It's such an interesting cross current of Elizabeth Warren expertise. You're an educator.
Wow.
This is an education and a tuition oriented bill, but it also involves the big financial structures of this country, the advantages they get against the little guy who has no advantages. You've always been in this zone of the consumer versus the big financial structures.
Look, this is why I ran for the United States Senate. This is what it's all about. The big banks, they got an army of lobbyists out there. They got an army of lawyers to fight for them. Our students have just their voices, and they call on us to do the right thing. And that's what we need to do. It's what we need to do here.
So, senior senator, that's got to feel pretty good.
It
John
does.
Kerry was a senator, I think he was a senator for about 75 years, waiting to be senior senator. He gets to be senior senator, then he immediately leaves.
That's right.
You've got this fresh face in the House, little Eddie Markey, running to be the junior senator from Massachusetts. How's he doing so far?
Ed Markey is great. I mean, come on. He's been out there fighting on behalf of families forever. He's been out there on gun issues, banning assault weapons. It's going to be a big difference, I think, in this race. He's been out there on environmental issues. I'm really out there for Ed Markey on this. He'll be a good partner in the Senate. He'll do the right thing. He'll be in fighting this kind of fight.
As the last Democrat who ran through a Republican opposition to get to the United States Senate in Massachusetts, did you see any new plays run against you that Ed Markey needs to know about and be ready for?
Well, the point, I think, for the Republicans is don't talk about being a Republican and don't talk about what it means to be a Republican.
And do not mention that name, Mitch McConnell.
That's right. Do not mention Mitch McConnell, and don't mention the things that the Republicans are in the United States Senate fighting for. For me, in my race, what it was all about is if we would just talk about how it was that the other guy was voting with the Republicans, how he strengthened the hands of those who opposed gun control, how he strengthened the hands of those who wouldn't support equal pay for equal work, how he strengthened the hands of polluters over our kids who needed help and needed support. And I think the same is true with Ed Markey in this race. If it is about the issues, if it is about who we want to have represent us in Washington, the values that are represented there, the votes that are represented there, I think Ed's going to do great in Massachusetts.
Senator Warren, congratulations on your first bill. If I could just get your autograph here on my copy of the first Warren bill. This is very exciting night.
For Lawrence, you bet.
This will be framed, and then I'll get a copy of the one the president signs when it becomes law.
Your mouth to God's ears.
Senator Warren, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Coming up.
That is so wonderful. That is so wonderful. Did you hear what she said? That's why she ran for Senate. So listen up. Let's all run for Senate. Come on. We need advocates that won't get bought off. She's not going to cave in to big payments. That's not the right thing. And what she's running for, and this is what we need to do, is fill our government, both at local, state, and federal level, with true advocates that care about the people. So I just had to share that with you because I think this is just signs to come. And truly, it's ringing true with the reporters. They recognize her wholesomeness and her sincerity and the common sense of the solutions. Here's a common sense solution. Why don't we just have the mortgages for all these people at the rate the banks get? 0.75%. I told you that months ago, that they could. This was the rate months ago when I did it, and I think the rate was 0.5% at that time. You could borrow $1 million for 1 year, and it would cost $2,500. So, I'd take that mortgage. So would you. So there's a solution. They're pouring out trillions to the banks. Give it to the people. Give it to the students. I cannot believe that they're already making a profit on the students while they're crushing us. We know this. And that's what we're going to start hearing about. So, okay, what's up with stocks? This is the short little thing from Catherine Austin Fitts. And none of this is really terribly pleasant, but we need to just recognize this is what it is, so we know what we're fighting. And I'm going to show you a short little video about where are those psychopaths in our society, by the way. Where are they? So let's listen up to, hey, what's up with these stocks?
Our theme tonight is the U.S. stock market hits new highs. The Dow this week went through over 15,100, S&P through 1630, and up. We're in unknown territory. Good evening. Welcome to the Slayer Report. I'm Catherine Austin Fitts. I'm delighted you could join me this evening. We know the central banks are buying equities. That article from Bloomberg up on the blog last week. But everything indicates that the Fed, as it buys $85 billion a month, is probably buying those bonds from people who are encouraged to then turn around and buy equities. This is not just billions, but trillions of subsidy going to the corporate economy while sovereign governments are systematically imploding.
Not sure what happened there.
Cutting down lots of small businesses. We have a cutting off of credit and liquidity. At the same time, we have massive liquidity going into the corporate economy. So you're literally seeing all the blood in the body going into, the right half, and the left half is literally getting choked off from oxygen. We're left in a situation where the divergence of opinion is even more bizarre than what's going on in the market. Meantime, commodities continue to deflate. So how can equities indicate a strong economy when commodities indicate a weak economy? Can the corporate economy be strong when the commodity sector is weak? Well, yes, Starbucks can make more money if they can buy coffee cheaper and cheaper. At the same time, it's hard to imagine how companies keep making money if unemployment is high and incomes are struggling. So what does this all mean? When central banks print money and technology disrupts, it means people lack honest pricing information that comes from the market. So the divergence of opinion is as bizarre as the economic conditions and the fundamentals. So my feeling is it's only the beginning. I expect to see a lot coming from institutional sources in the developed world to print as much money into the equity markets as we've seen them put into the fixed income markets.
Okay, so basically what we're facing is more to come. They're going to keep printing. And I have just a short few minutes on how effective is that printing press. What's really classic she pointed out is that the money supply is growing, so that's pushing up stocks. And did you catch that the 80 billion a month that Bernanke is buying is probably buying the banks and people out of bonds so that they can invest in equities? So it's shifting that. We're going to show you real quickly an article on how that affects real estate and what we need to be aware of that's going on. And this is the dilemma. You see the stock, which is basically now a corporate picture, and the commodities decreasing. So stocks are rising, commodity prices are down. Have you noticed gold and silver? They're way down off their highs. And so they forecast a weak economy, whereas stocks forecast a good economy. So we're in this split, shifting more and more. How long it lasts? Well, we don't know.
Happens to the Japanese consumer and their purchasing power as the cost of all these imports go up? Okay, how is it possible for what the Japanese central bank is doing to actually work and lift their economy? Can they lift asset prices? Sure, for a while, just like Ben Bernanke can lift the price of the S&P 500 for a while. All right, is there a long-term macroeconomic stability process that comes out of this? Oh, absolutely not. So what we are doing is sowing the seeds of the next crash. And, the challenge is always when. The answer is, I don't know any more than anybody else does, but that it is a certainty that when you have trillions of dollars of flows that are unsupported by real value, that they will revert back to the mean in reverse. That's a truism. That's going to happen. It's just a question of what's going to set it off.
Last question. If we do have another systemic crash, you're talking about bail-ins in Europe, there's talk about bail-ins in the United States, that people are going to lose their money. Do you think people will lose? I mean, Mark Farber, I can't tell you all the people that are worried, to Jim Rogers, about losing their money and their assets, at least some of them. Is that going to happen? Are people going to lose their money and assets in banks here in the United States?
It already happened in the United States. Does anybody remember IndyMac? At IndyMac, remember, anyone who was over the 100,000 limit, which this was before they raised it to 250, lost their assets. Okay? Now, IndyMac is an especially poignant example. And the reason is, IndyMac was backdating customer deposits to misstate their asset and capital position, make their books look better than they really were. They were doing this with the full knowledge and complicity of the Office of Thrift Supervision, which is our government's primary regulator for those institutions. The OTS knew that the bank was doing this. They did nothing about it. The bank failed, and it was closed with a shortfall of assets against liabilities, which was either entirely existent because of this backdating or was larger than it would otherwise have been. So the losses that the people took that were uninsured occurred in whole or part because of deliberate malfeasance on the part of government regulators. Not an accident, not an oversight, a deliberate act, which if you or I did it would land us in federal prison. Intentionally falsifying financial statements is bank fraud. Why is nobody in jail? Yes, there will be losses. Yes, the government will be not only involved in looking the other way, they will be intentionally complicit in those losses. And yes, again, as things stand today, nobody will go to jail.
Carl Denninger, market-ticker.org. Thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Did you catch that? It is truly a conspiracy. The government agencies, and they mention now the OTS, the Office of Thrift Supervision, which was rolled into the OCC. OTS was absorbed into the OCC. That's why we say Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, OCC now, because the OTS that managed these mega banks was taken over. Here is that article. This is the specific article, and notice this was in '09. This has been a pattern, and IndyMac is the One West shift, that is the FDIC loss sharing agreement that we've seen. I've got the video on my Homeowner for Justice website, how basically the government, the FDIC, gave all the money to the One West Bank, and they had no risk. So this is truly something. I think Jed's joined us. Just a minute. Oh, shoot! Jed, are you there? Shoot! I accidentally don't know how to work the phone. Oh my goodness! Call again, Jed. We want to hear what he's got to say because he's bringing in some neat information from Mendocino County. Let's see if I can just redial him. And get him on the line. We want to hear what he's got to say.
Hello?
Hey, Jed, this is CJ. Sorry, I accidentally hung up on you.
No problem.
Okay, so tell us what is going on in Mendocino County. This is really exciting.
Well, first of all, I'd like to give credit to Agnes Woolsey of Occupy
Yes.
Mendocino. She's
Yes.
very soft-spoken, older woman who is the one who really sent out all the postcards a couple months ago when you came
Yes.
up, and we
Yes.
presented to the recorder's office my documents, and she's been really working towards a public bank and also getting, the county to audit the recorder's office. And so she contacted me saying that there was a Board of Supervisors meeting, which was yesterday, and wanted to know if I could speak towards, it was a budgetary meeting, so we're asking them to budget some money to audit the recorder's office. And she came from over an hour away to do her own speech, and I prepared something the night before, and so we sat through the whole meeting, sat there for about 4 hours.
Oh, wow.
Speak, but I basically told them that this was the biggest crimes that the banks have perpetrated on American people, and their titles could be in jeopardy also. And my documents were proof that our recorder's office did have fraudulent documents recorded, and that we asked that they set aside some money for it. And the sheriff was in the building, and our DA, who I've met with before, and don't drag that, please. So they all listened to my speech, and afterwards, Agnes and I were talking to the DA. There was also Robin Sunbeam, is also part of Occupy Mendocino, and is very, very active. She was there to support all day, and the DA basically said that what we've got going on with the Attorney General's investigation is more the jurisdiction that is prudent to what we're trying to do. And I said, isn't there anything that you can do to stop these fraudulent recordings? And he's not really, but he was interested in knowing if it had actually been assigned to an attorney or not.
Yes.
And if there was a name, because he says he knows there's a lot of really talented, super smart attorneys that get that will work for the Attorney General, and he could tell how serious they're taking it by who's on it, or if they're just giving us assignments to kind of keep us busy.
Right.
And,
Right. Yeah.
So, it was a good talk. Being that he hadn't followed up on too much of my emails to him. And my last email to him was basically, so I'm assuming that you're not really moving forward with this. And then we caught the recorder in the hall and presented her with the 100 signatures that Agnes had collected on a petition to ask them to audit our records, and that train volunteers to help out. And so in that conversation, Robin and Agnes and I, with our Recorder Susan, who just seemed to be, my hands are tied. It's at the legislative level. You can, you can contact Phil Teen. I don't know why they're not doing anything off of what he's done. And I said, well, if we did get this money, would you be into doing this audit? Is that something you want to do? And she's like, well, sure, but there's things I got to deal with. And I basically tried to ask forward-leaning questions that made her commit one way or another to either being a part of this or not. And she mentioned that the association, the County Recorders Association of California had written a letter to, I'm not sure who, someone in the state or the Senate or the Assembly or something, and asked them, basically told them about all these fraudulent foreclosures. And I asked, well, can I get a copy of that? And she immediately went back to her desk to try to find it, and she couldn't find it. And then I asked her, I said, well, would you be willing to write a letter from the association asking to change the legislation? Because that's what she's saying, is that the Constitution, California says that they're not lawyers and they have to record things, and they can't, there's any discretion on what's recorded. And, we said, well, we're not asking you to use discretion. We're asking you to require one more document. And she said, well, maybe, you could get enough people to send in letters to get them to change the laws. And I said, yeah, and it would carry a lot of weight if you did it yourself or if the association did it. And so she said that she would work towards that goal, and so I emailed her this morning trying, basically saying, I really would like you to get a hold of that copy of that letter if you can, and would you like me to help draft a letter? I'd like to write letters also and send out an online letter. I don't know what they are. It's not a petition, but, when you can send off a letter to your assembly person.
Right.
And so I'm just trying to get behind her and keep pushing her in the direction that we want her to go.
That's a really good visual, Jed. Getting behind her and pushing her. Push these people in the right direction. Now, one thing I emailed back to you, and of course, this is just breaking. Go ahead, Jed. Go ahead.
It's like you do with a little puppy or something.
Exactly.
Like, come on, you can do it.
You can do it. You can do it. Come over here. And the fact is, I just found out this morning that, because Jed emailed me and we've been texting back and forth, that there was a letter sent. So I didn't know anything about this. So good for you for finding that out. And I've already emailed my contact at the AG's office to get a copy. Because you're trying to get a copy. I'm going to try to get a copy. Let's every one of us in California go to your recorder's office and ask to see a copy of that letter, and let's get that letter, and I'll put it on the website so that we can see what they wrote and who they wrote it to. I'm not sure. The other thing I wanted to mention, Jed, and then I'd like you to finish up whatever else you need to share. He mentioned that the DA wants to know which prosecutor, and I am fine with sharing that information with all the DAs in this state. So get me your DA's email. I don't have it. You've copied me, Jed, on the email you've sent to him, but I don't have his email address. So every one of you listening, in fact, every one of you in the country listening, I don't care which county you're in, which state, they're all going to be interested. Your Attorney General Department is going to be interested in knowing, and your district attorneys, who is working on this at the California Attorney General's office. And I am fine with passing on this information to those elected officials. I really didn't want to have it out in public because I don't want them barraged or undermined by people that might not be happy about what they're doing. But I don't mind passing this out in the country, who this prosecutor is and the team, because one of the things you emailed me, the DA had asked Jed, well, how serious is this? Are they just giving us busy work, trying to, shove us over here? And I want that feedback. So I want the DA to know who it is we're dealing with and what they've been telling us. That way we can get some other feedback from other entities like the Mendocino County District Attorney. Does he think this is a serious investigation or not? Let's make sure everybody knows they're being watched. How else can we ensure that we're going to move this thing forward?
Yeah, and I included to the Board of Supervisors that my documents had been included in a packet that was presented to the Attorney
Yes.
General, and had thus been open an investigation, hoping that would give more credibility to them, going, oh, maybe this is something real, and this isn't some guy just sitting here talking to me.
Exactly. And yesterday I was called during the show, so I couldn't answer the phone, but it was some of the activists that were actually presenting to the Sonoma County supervisors about fraudulent foreclosures. So turns out that our public comment at our supervisors, so here's a guide. If you want to start really getting activism in your county, find out right now when the supervisor board meets and when is the public comment section. There's typically 3 minutes allowed, and it's either in the morning or the afternoon or sometime during the day, usually at a set time. So find out when that is so that you're prepared. And then you can actually start getting groups together. Go ahead.
Yeah, unless you're speaking on an agenda item, and yesterday was the budget. So
Right.
We actually waited until they did their budget thing, and then we spoke.
That's great. So if it identifies with an item that's under discussion, then you can speak right at that time. If it's just, for example, on the foreclosure crisis, and it isn't connected to any topic on that day's agenda, then you can use the public comment section time. Find out when that is so that you can be prepared. And so I went over and yesterday shared with our county supervisors what I've been doing with the Attorney General's office and gave them that link. It was just printed, but they can certainly type that little bit link in so that they can watch that presentation, and they have links in the comment sections now to all the documents so that they can see the work that's being done and the effort that we're making. Share that with your Board of Supervisors. You just, it's 3 minutes, go there, you can just print up that link. In fact, what I'll do is I made a little printout, cover page that said, hey, look, they're using fraud to commit foreclosure. We want these documents removed from our recorder's offices. If they don't get them removed, then the people are gonna have to take, they're gonna force us to do something more to get them removed. And oh, by the way, we're working with the AG's office right now to get a statewide grand jury. So I'll put that letter, that cover sheet, the whole packet actually of what I gave to them, because I quoted the laws, in the suspicious documents, and gave them a copy of a worksheet that I've done, and also a copy of, the forged signatures, where you can just see that they're obviously different. And this being passed out to the supervisors in every county will help get them up to speed in what we're asking for and demanding, and it gives you something to pass out and talk about. So I'll put that up on the homepage of the Homeowners for Justice.
I feel, I'm asking our recorder what we should be asking for and to whom.
Yes.
I really would like, just like let the Attorney General know that we want a criminal investigation flyer.
Exactly.
I think we need to do that same thing in a form letter to send all of our representatives to ask them to change the law to allow an affidavit of authority.
That's a great idea.
For that.
Was she able to give you any answers on that?
Well, I sent that as an email.
Okay.
That's what, I sent an email because I'm trying to coax her along. Like, hey, I'll help you write this. What do you need?
Right.
What do you, I want to write one myself. What should I say? Trying to keep her involved. But as this letter comes together, I think we should put one up on the site so everybody
Exactly.
can download it.
Exactly.
And fill it and send it. Maybe we can get Agnes to do one of those online where you sign your name on computer and it just emails it to them.
A petition could work.
Change the law so that all recorders have to require an affidavit of authority in order to record foreclosure documents.
Yes.
And
yes.
if everyone was required to do that and we had all 50 58 recorders from every county in the state sending a letter asking to do that, I think we could get some big movement on that.
I would hope so. And I believe that the more it comes out, just like I've been saying in these articles, these writers, and it doesn't even seem to be just one writer, it's coming out in many of these articles, they're actually using the words fraudulent documents to foreclose. So this is a huge movement forward. I'm just real excited about that because the more they say it, just commonplace, the more the public says, what? They did? And it gets the fraud out. So the public starts to say, wait a minute, let me get this straight. They forged these documents to take my neighbor's house? What? How can that be right? And how come nobody's in prison? Because people in this country really do get it. If you're forging and being fraudulent, just like was said on these articles I've already talked about and shown today, as I do almost every day, if I did that, if you did that, if you did that, we'd be in prison already. This is...
I told our board of supervisors yesterday.
Yes.
And
yes.
I said, this may affect your title. You may even be paying the wrong entity right now. Because they don't know. They were in such a rush to make a profit. And this is your children and your grandchildren that are going to have to pay for this.
That's right.
But we need to stop it now, and it involves everyone.
Exactly. Exactly.
And then, since we were talking the budget, I said, well, and while you're here, let me tell you about another revenue stream that you guys could tap into.
Yes.
And it's the eminent domain and the public bank. And Occupy Mendocino is really working hard to get a public bank, but I think we have one vote on the board of supervisors that's into it.
Right.
I mentioned that, and that they could capture that income stream, and that we could stop $2 billion a month in interest leaving our county.
Wow.
Every month. And the sheriff has like a DA, his own attorney that was in the room.
Right.
And he used to be a CEO of a credit union. And so he approached one of the Wall Street people, Occupy, and was very, very interested in the eminent domain public banking idea. And he's our sheriff's right-hand man. And he gave her a card. So,
oh my goodness. We've got an inside interest.
It's good.
This is the DA, the sheriff's attorney.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I'm not sure exactly what he is, because I know there's county council and all that.
Right.
But, he gave Robin a card and said that he thought it was an incredible idea, was really excited, and the DA and the sheriff were sitting there whispering back and forth throughout the board meeting. So, they're all close. They all meet for different things. And if we can get one person in there that's, excited and enthusiastic.
Exactly.
We're creating a crack in there, and we're just going to keep wedging that crack open.
Absolutely. And yesterday when I was at the supervisor's waiting because the door was closed and it was locked until it was open. And so we're sitting out in the hallway and some county worker walks by and is real excited that we're there to shake things up. She says, we need shakers. We need people to come and shake things up. And she just works there.
Right.
She's a researcher. So, this is what I'm going to call surprising support. I believe, based on, just these anecdotes that have happened just to you and me just yesterday, I believe that in the government, in the banks, in the corporations, there is surprising support. It's just not been kosher yet for them to really support it, or maybe they haven't even been aware. The fact is, we feel like we're, banging our pots and pans and making a big noise, and yet we don't have the megaphone yet that we really need. And so a lot of people don't even know what we're doing, and the more it spreads.
Just convinced,
That's
I
right.
email a lot of stuff to real estate friends of mine, and I've got one that basically is just like, hey, if they're not paying, they should be foreclosed on.
Right, get them out. Yeah.
The Randy Kelton interview, and
Yeah.
I was like, dude, watch this. You've got to see this. And he's
Right.
like, oh, that's great stuff. When I come across a client that's being wrongfully or forced to foreclose, I'll give it to him. I'm like, dude, they're almost all wrongfully
Exactly.
foreclosed. Did you not watch the interview?
Exactly.
There's a lot of closed-mindedness around it.
Exactly. And I've discovered, you know me, I'm pretty outspoken. And so, pretty much, if someone is willing to actually look me in the eye and talk about foreclosures, I start by saying basically, the answer is every foreclosure uses forged, fake, and fraudulent paperwork because none of the banks have the right to foreclose on any securitized loan. We start there. And then, that pulls out objections. Oh, well, blah, blah, blah. Wherever that conversation goes, then we follow it. But I know that they've heard what I said. And that's the seed I've planted. So then when they see, they may just say, you're another crazy. The trouble is they can't get that out of their mind, okay? We've planted that seed in there. And then when they look at forged documents, they other things come across their desk. They're going to be more sensitized to everything that is said. Now, in every article, in every presentation, that they'll see it again. And they'll go, oh, really? And gradually, people will start to open up and go, I think that person was probably right. They may not even remember who you are. That's really not material. What's material is we need to just throw the seed out and plant it everywhere we possibly can. And we need to be just convinced and adamant, because that, the fact, Jed, that you're right. I know I'm right. All these people say the same thing. All these auditors, all these, Elizabeth Warren, all these people are saying the same thing. Catherine Austin Fitts. It's not like we're out there making this stuff up. We're just sharing this with everybody. And the more confident and straightforward we are about it, the more it will really sell, if you get my drift.
Yeah.
People will accept that. Yeah, and they're not going to just call you necessarily crazy. I mean, they may. So what? So what?
Yeah.
Eventually, they won't.
Yeah, everybody, they'll get it. It's just
Exactly.
It takes months of learning and
Right.
paying attention. There's so much.
Exactly.
It's
It's a very sophisticated scheme.
Everybody could just sit with me and listen to your show all the time.
I know. It takes time. And a lot of people do watch it. Or what I'm really hoping for, even if you don't have time to watch it, that you'll scan down the links. Now, that brings me to another quick mention. If you go to the live stream website under Weekdays Live, just last night, I printed up and posted the latest and greatest. I call it the Weekdays Live Library, because it has all the shows. Most of them now have their own links. So if you see a show you want to watch, you can just click the link right there. You don't have to go hunt and find it. It has all of the links for every comment under the shows. And every one of those links is live. And you can Control F. You can search on that document, and you can just start typing in names or words to see what shows up, to jump to the show that has those links in it. I'm trying to make that a really usable library, reference library, both for myself, but also for you and for everybody in the country. Because literally, all of these things that I link and all these people I talk to, it's all about the same thing. They're in control. They've screwed it up. We need to get back in control on every issue. And true, at least in foreclosures, we've got the documents. We've got proof. We've got somebody we can go after for that, to help to unravel this fraud. I sort of think of the fraud as a sweater, a knitted sweater with a little string hanging out. And I'm believing, I just see it as we start progressing and working on these documents and honing in on these criminal charges. It's like pulling that thread. And as you pull that thread, you unravel the entire sweater. They cannot escape. This is something we can actually prove in a court of law, criminal conduct. And I believe that's very, very powerful. And I think we should never, ever lose sight of that. Makes us really want to really focus more on these suspicious documents and get them in front of our supervisors, our DAs, our sheriffs, our recorders, and keep pushing, because I believe we do have some shift of public opinion that's coming on our side.
Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with the Randy Kelton
Yes, yes.
stuff?
Yes, I've watched it. One of the problems, and I haven't shown it on the air. I'll put the link up tomorrow so that you're welcome to watch it. These shows are often very long. It was done a year ago, and this is what happens. So many links come to me. They were done in 2010, 2011, 2012, and on the one hand, they're accurate and very good. On the other hand, it's very depressing that this has been out there that long, and we haven't yet gotten the kind of justice that we need. But Randy is very good. I will focus on that tomorrow. I'll show you some of the episode of that.
His website, mortgagefraud.com, and
Yeah.
what he's basically saying is that we as citizens have rights that we can do things that even attorneys can't do, because a judge can, they're all beholden to the bar, and
Right.
yet we as citizens are the only people that can go in and force a grand jury investigation on a judge, and they know that, and that's why they don't like the per se litigants. But he's talking about looking at the good faith estimate, and basically he can almost always find. They say that they charge you $40,000, and really over time it's $60,000. So there's $20,000 in fraud right there.
Right.
And but it always comes down to who owns the lien.
Right.
Can you prove that you are the owner of the note? And
Right.
if so, produce it. Because if you're an agent for this person, the agency can only be proven through the mouth of the principal, and they can't get the principal.
Right. The principle is actually non-existent. This is why they have to use forged documents. And part of the issue too, Jed, and people that are watching me, I know I'm just swamped with people screaming, calling, emailing me, saying, help me, help me, help me. And I sometimes I just can't. I can't even get to it in time. But the other issue is, even though all of this is true, it's not been successful yet for people really in a court of law, or they still lose their homes to foreclosure. So I am still focused on what I would call a wholesale solution, a solution that stops fraud from getting in our records anymore, period. In other words, we want injunctions by the states. Since the federal government won't do it, Eric won't do it, he should be doing it. He won't step up and call the shot, and that's why one of the reasons we're fighting so hard. So my focus really is the education, the inspiration, the guidance, if you will, of the troops, and how can we get wholesale solutions that will work for everybody. Because the problem is, so many people go to court, spend all these thousands of dollars, and still lose the house, regardless of the truth of the matter. This is what is so outrageous. So many times people will say, what about this solution, that solution? The trouble is, it's just not good enough yet to help everybody. And so these things in my effort sort of are on the side, and I'm trying to show things as they come up. But, the point is, we have to stop. It's a systemic issue, system-wide, and we need a system-wide solution.
Mm-hmm.
That's my focus. That's why the county recorders, like this letter, this is really, really important. I've already tried to get my hands on that. So let's go into our recorders and say, hey, I heard you guys sent a letter. Give me a copy. I want to see it. And see if we can get a copy of it. Send it to me if you get one, so that we can post it, so that we can make this known. These are just really great efforts, Jed. I'm just so proud of you. Thank you so much for all the effort and leadership that you've shown in this effort.
Likewise, thank you.
Well, keep up the good work. We're starting running short of time, so I'd like to move on. But thanks, Jed, for sharing with us, and truly keep us posted. I'm going to be on the radio tonight with KZYX, and so hopefully,
What show?
yeah, hopefully we'll be able to really get Mendocino County more, the people more aware of what the options are for the future. This is the point. We've got to have a future, and we've got to have a game-changing shift. We have to change the game. They've already won that game. Let's get out of that game. Give that.
What time is the show?
From 7 to 8. And
Do you know what's the name of the show?
yes, it's Mendo Matters. Mendocino County Matters. And it's with Paul Lambert and one of the Dans, I'm not sure which Dan, county supervisor, is going to be on the phone and discussing the public banking, eminent domain, and ethical investing topics. And then Ellen's going to be there representing Occupy on the phone. I'm going to drive up to Willits and be there in the studio with them to help facilitate this discussion and the answers. And then people can call in to the show. Oh, and I forgot to put
All
call
over
in.
the world that can live stream that at kzyx.org.
Yes, and I will have that link on the comments today. I'm showing it right now on the air, or on live stream right now. It's the kzyx.org, and you'll see over here it says playing next, now playing, and you can actually listen live right here. Click here to listen live. So that's how that web page works. Yes, yes. Thanks, Jed.
Yeah.
We sure appreciate your sharing. We just are so excited about the news that you've brought to us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. And we'll keep looking for updates from you in the future.
Yeah, I'll get you that DA's email too.
Perfect. Perfect. And again, let me remind everybody to get me your DA's email. If you can just call the district attorney's office, ask them what email, staff at, whatever, because it doesn't have to go directly to the district attorney, but I will draft a specific email explaining what's happening and the contacts at the Attorney General's office for our district attorneys, particularly in California. But again, anywhere, any county, there's 3,100 counties, let's get 3,100 DAs contacting the Attorney General's office, finding out what they're doing, and then they can go to their attorney generals at their states, and then their attorney general should have the information that's been forwarded to me from various and sundry states about the fraud in the documents. Let's go after them. Let's beat them on the toes. This is the foundation. This is the feet of this giant. The fraud is at the foot level. And this is where we can nail them. If we cut off their feet, it's pretty hard to walk. And that's my goal. Let's really bring them down. And truly, this is something that can be proven. That's why it's so important. I'm going to skip some of the things I had for today. I will show them tomorrow. We're starting to run a little long, but that's okay. This was really good information. I wanted to, for sure, get this link into the comments for today. This is a link that came to me from Public Banking Institute. It happens to be Creating Money, this is a positive money with solutions, and this website is England. And so they're going to talk in terms of pounds. That doesn't matter. It's all the same. We call ours dollars, they call theirs pounds. And what I love about this website is they have some short little videos that you can watch about how money works, how banks create money, a video course on banking, how we got here, and some of the technical details. This is literally the home page of this site. So I'm going to have this on the comments links. You can look at it yourself this afternoon. And it talks about that. And so see, this is why I say it's worldwide. This is everywhere. This is not just the US. It's not just our central banks, although they are the leaders in this criminal enterprise and coordination. And so the literal, I think people get this. If you create money, you're creating debt. And they explain it in ways that, real people can grasp. And so it says, our current economic crisis was caused by banks creating too much money and too much debt. Now, over 97% of the money in our economy is based on debt. And they go on to point out that when debt has interest rates associated with it, and debt has to be repaid. So here's the dilemma. When debt is repaid, then that money disappears. So they talk about the issues, and it is truly a broken money system. fuels many of the social and economic problems we're facing. This is such a cool website. That's why I want to talk about it. And many of us were told, they talk about house prices. Many were told that house prices are so high because there's too many people and not enough houses. But in reality, the house prices were pushed up by all the debt creation, unlimited, the billions of pounds or dollars, in our case, that banks created in the years before the financial crisis. It was truly just a bubble of available money and then they didn't do any underwriting. So the house prices could just go up and up and up and up and up. There was nothing stopping the prices, like underwriting, making sure people could repay. And here, this is really good definition of debt. Most of the money in the UK, say United States, say every country on the planet, is created by banks when they make loans. That means that the only way to get the money into the economy is to borrow it from the banks, leaving us all trapped under a mountain of debt. And of course, inequality. Because almost all of our money is on loan from the banks, someone has to pay the interest. Thus, interest redistributes money from the bottom 90%, all of us that have to have loans, to the top 10%, the ones that don't have loans. Classic. Well described. And I think people can get this, so share this with everybody. Let's stick it on our Facebooks. I'm putting these links on my banking homepage on the Homeowners for Justice site. Sorry, I haven't gotten there yet. This morning was just too crazy to get it done. I'll get it done. And then recessions and crises. The financial crisis happened because banks were able to create too much money too quickly. They just blew it up and used it to push up house prices and speculate on the financial markets. And so now, boom, they close that down. People don't pay the debt back. Boom. So now we don't have enough money. See, it's the easy loan, easy money, tough money cycle, and we need to get out of that cycle. And the other thing I wanted to show you on this, which is really great, this is our proposals. They have proposals, specific ones that really we can grasp. One, banks should not be allowed to create the money that they use. Duh. That's like a duh statement. And that has not yet been discussed in public banking. So I've not yet had a chance. I just found this yesterday. So I'm going to be discussing with public banking contacts. I'm going to bring this up, you mark my words, at the public banking convention that's just around the corner in a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, in San Rafael. If banks don't create money, then how do we create the money? Who does that? What are their proposals? What do they think about that? Because they've been talking about the public bank picture is generating credit based on loans. That is the standard banking model. That's how banks create the money, by lending. As long as you have some kind of a reserve ratio, then theoretically that caps how much money they can make. You'll look at some of these little videos, and in England, evidently, they dropped the reserve ratio. So there's no connection. So they can just make it willy-nilly. I mean, truly, like the Federal Reserve. Click, click, click. Oh, there's $6 more trillion. It's just totally, completely run amok. So another proposal, money should only be created through a democratic and transparent body working in the public interest. I totally agree. Money should come into the real economy. And when they say real, they mean goods and services. They mean commodities. They mean your effort, my effort, the things that we grow and create, not just straight into the banks. When the banks create this money, then they can use it to gamble on Wall Street. And so now you have the financial markets just booming, and the rest of us are just going hungry. Just like Catherine Austin Fitts with that brain, one half of the brain's growing and the other half is just shriveling. That's exactly what's happening and what we're experiencing right now. And so this proposal puts the money coming into the real economy based on goods and services before it reaches the financial markets and property bubbles. So it'll be much less likely to create bubbles. And then money should be created free of debt. It should be created so that we can use it without having to pay interest on it. So these are really fabulous proposals. I wanted to get it into this live stream comments for today. I've got some other things we're going to talk. We skipped the one on psychopaths and skipped some of the other things that we haven't watched yet, but that's okay. We'll pick up the pieces tomorrow, and I will do this. I'm going to get Black's Law Dictionary's link into today's live stream. This is another helpful link that somebody sent. So with this link, you can actually go into the Black's Law libraries and look up definitions and become more knowledgeable. So I'm going to put that in today's comments. And then, of course, don't forget about the show tonight if you have a chance to listen to it. I'm going to try to live stream it. I'm not sure how live streaming will work in the studio, but we'll try and see what happens. Here's the public banking conference again. Here's the link for that. And then again, please don't forget to push for a statewide grand jury investigation. We can print this also in the packet that I'm going to upload. I'll try to do that today before I have to drive up to Willett, so I have to leave early in the afternoon to get there. So that this will be available for you to download, to print, black and white's fine, and submit to your supervisors. This and the packet that I submitted to my supervisors yesterday. As soon as we get the recorder's letter that Jed talked about, definitely we're going to be pushing that on the put that up on the website so that you can have that information and share those letters with the supervisors, because obviously the recorders, if 57 counties out of 58, the recorders signed them, then they obviously know they were sent. So they should obviously have the letter, one would think. So let's try to get that letter. Get me your DA emails. I will send them the information so that they can contact the Attorney General's office directly, and we can start to coordinate that effort and keep everybody honest. So again, thanks so much for watching. This is CJ signing off for today. I've got to run. I've got to get ready to go to Willet's. So we're just trying to keep it short. And of course, let's constantly bugger the bankers, the politicians, and the bureaucrats. Thanks again. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
When I was a lass, I was proud of me class, like my father and mother before me.
They taught me to fight for my civil rights,
But it's always the same old story.
the rich reign supreme while the poor can but dream.
Under Labour or Liberal or Tory. And I say, bugger the bankers and politicians, bugger the bureaucrats too, bugger the buggers who make up the rules, and if you're one of them, bugger you, and if you're one of them, bugger you.
The system is bent and the money's all spent. We're battered from every direction. The workers get taxed while the wealthy relax.
With nary a moment's reflection,
Where there's brass, there's muck.
and they don't give an arse, 'cause they're programmed against insurrection. And I say, bugger the bankers and politicians, bugger the bureaucrats too, bugger the buggers who make up the rules, and if you're one of them, bugger you, and if you're one of them, bugger you.
Now all you good people with passion to vent, don't give up the struggle for justice. But I've done my time on the protesters' line, and these days I show my dissent